Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone out there. This is Brian from CBT Nuggets headquarters. I'm a training advisor here. We are lucky enough to have our good friend and trusted training advisor here, instructor, Keith Barker with us, talking to us today about life after CCNA. So guys, today I just want to let you know we are going to be having a recording of this webinar available at blog.cbtnuggets for future listening. If you're unable to listen to the entire thing, please check it out at a later time. And during the presentation, if you have any questions, please go ahead and type those into the chat window. We will get to as many as possible. And let's go ahead and get started. Keith, over to you.
All right. Hey, thanks, Brian. Hey, I wouldn't mind being a training advisor for CBT Nuggets. What a sweet job to work with people all day and help them, give them direction on what might change their life. It is an absolute privilege to be here with you. I'm so grateful for the few minutes that we're going to have today based on whatever time zone you're in to go ahead and talk together. First things first, if you have achieved your CCNA in Routing and Switching with Cisco, I'd like to take a moment and honor you. That is awesome. As you know, that is not an easy task, so that's our starting point as far as way to go. Good job. Now, I remember I'm a father. I've got several children, and one of the things that is amazing that happens is that sometimes when they reach a point in their life, maybe it's they've turned 16 or they turn 21, they have some great expectations about what's going to happen. And I am all about great expectations. I mean, it's so fun to think forward to things and plan on things. But sometimes, for example, a child, when that child turns 16, they think, oh, I'm going to start driving, or oh, I'm going to start dating more, or whatever it is that's in their mind. And sometimes those expectations aren't realistic. And what I wanted to do is, in addition to saying congratulations on a CCNA, I also want to point out that the CCNA is really just an invitation to start. It's sort of like the beginning point of launching with a base knowledge of foundation and gaining additional skills. So I'd like to start off with a question. I'd like you to think about this. How do you think an employer views a CCNA Route Switch certification? I mean, let's put ourselves in their shoes for a moment. We're sitting in an office. We have a candidate who wants to come work for our company. We're human resources just for a moment. And when they come in, we look at that person's resume and it says, this person has a CCNA in Route Switch. What does that mean to them? And the shocker that I want to prepare you for is that it very much could be like fogging a mirror, meaning, yes, you have a pulse, yes, you are alive, and also, yes, you have a base knowledge of understanding. And it's not easy to get the CCNA. So again, congratulations on doing that. But I think one of the secrets is we need to realize that as soon as we have a CCNA, a base level of knowledge in some technology, it's really our invitation to learn and to continue to grow. And what I did is I put together some questions that people ask me all the time regarding how I got to, how do I get in this field or how do I get in that field? And the question I'd like to bring up is this one. What is the secret to becoming really competent in a technology? And let me take you back in time. I'm old. I'm 50 years old, half a century. And when I started in technology, it was back in the 80s, and I went to Control Data Institute in Los Angeles, California. And this course, it was cutting edge. I mean, it used to be on mainframes, and now this is the first curriculum they had back in the 80s on microcomputers. And so I learned all about, in the first 2 or 3 months, all about capacitive reactive circuits. And I learned about how to calculate the resistance through a circuit. And I learned how to memorize the color codes on a resistor. All things that I have never had to use. However, it was required for that curriculum, and I was excited. And that's the secret about getting really good at something, is having enough energy and momentum so that you can go ahead and hit it and continue to move. People say, well, Keith, how did you, gosh, you've got a couple of CCIEs, you've got a HP Master ASE with HP, you're Juniper certified, you're Checkpoint certified, you're Brocade certified, et cetera, et cetera. How do you do all that? And I tell them this, and I'll tell you this, my friend, in this webinar. If anyone studies half as much as I do, they would probably be twice as good as I am at any of those technologies. I'm not a fast learner, But my secret is I just keep moving my feet. Every day, every week, I'm going in the direction of whatever that goal is. So if I want to learn a new technology or master some new aspect, I got to keep moving. So just realize that the first, and I'm going to be realistic here, the first 20 hours, as we learn anything new, whether it's how to ride riding a bike, maybe it takes less than 20 hours. If we're going to learn a new sport, or we're going to learn a new skill, or we're going to learn a new language, the first 20 hours, that ramp-up time to get really, kind of get a feel for the lay of the land, the vocabulary, the concepts, if we can get past that first 20 hours and start using that information and continue to go, that's the secret. So anytime you want to learn something new, just hit it with a lot of energy and a lot of momentum, and that will help you in getting really good at that technology. Now, and that's what I think about CCNA. The CCNA, you've done a lot of work. You've got a lot of base knowledge already about Cisco networking. And the secret is to go ahead and keep that moving forward. I tell people that you should be reading at least 3 to 5 books a year in the field that you want to become the best at. Who else is doing that? The answer is nobody. If you start wherever you are and you read 3 to 5 books a year and you continually practice, you get your hands-on practice with that technology, you'll get better and better and better. So a lot of times people say, well, Keith, what area should I focus on? And I have some friends who are attorneys. They're great guys. But personally, to be an attorney for me, personally, I wouldn't want to do it. Now, when I was younger, I thought, hey, maybe I'll be an attorney because they make good money and it sounds like they have a good income and stuff. But I think the secret is you should not try to go out and focus on some technology that is not interesting to you, that you just like, ew, I don't want to deal with that. And as far as some ideas of what technologies are in demand, that's another question I get all the time. What should I do? The secret is, get your base level of knowledge, get the hands-on practice. As soon as you possibly can, get some real-world experience in applying those technologies, and then continue to move. So here's an example of some possible areas that you might want to consider. And as I read through this list, I'd like you to think to yourself, wow, that just sounds really interesting to me. I would love to do that. And whatever you resonate on, that's very likely what you should look into, go ahead and pursuing, because there's money to be made, and there's careers to be had, and there's solutions to be provided for every one of these areas. So we have core routing and switching, which I call the bread and butter of networking. Routing and switching, how it works, routing protocols, link state, distance vector, metrics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's data center, which is fantastic. Data center is very, very interesting to a lot of people, and it's in demand. There's also security. Even in a virtualized environment, do we care about security? The answer is yes. Even in a voice network, do we care about security? The answer is yes. So security and penetration testing and certification for becoming really good at identifying weaknesses in a company and helping a company to overcome or mitigate those risks is a great field. So we have security and voice. We have wireless. And I don't know about you, but wireless is not going away. It just keeps getting better and better. And as the airwaves fill up and people are overlapping everybody else's frequencies, we're going to have more and better engineers and systems. And Cisco has some great offerings for wireless as well. But we need to have some really great people to implement those. We also have service provider and design is another whole area. So the trick is, which one should you go for? Let's imagine that you and I decide that we want to become really good at making hubcaps for stagecoach wheels, which, by the way, are not in high demand. That probably would not be a great idea to go ahead and have that be our focus of our life and our livelihood in an area that's not in demand. Now, all those areas I just mentioned are in demand and more in some parts of the world than others. So if you had some, for example, one of those areas like wireless or security or data center or virtualization, what I would recommend doing, the next thing I would do is say, well, that sounds interesting to me. I'm going to go to the source and I'm going to talk to somebody who is currently doing that work. Now, when I was younger, a long time ago, but when I was younger, I had some advice that was given to me. It said, it said. The advice that was given to me was, if you want to do something, some kind of career or some kind of job, find somebody who's really good at it and buy them lunch. And I thought, well, how's that going to help? This person's already really successful. I'm just a nobody. How's that going to help? If I buy, and I did this several times, I would go out and I was doing a real estate thing for a while, and so I knew nothing about mortgages. I mean, I had a mortgage, but I didn't know anything about the details of mortgages. So I found one of the most successful mortgage brokers in the state of Nevada. I called him up, made an appointment, offered to buy him lunch. He said, no, I don't want to do a lunch, but I'm willing to talk with you. I went in, and I picked his brain. I said, okay, I don't know much about this technology. Where do I start? Where do I go? What are the pros and cons? Would you do it again if you had a choice as far as this career in this field? And it's amazing what somebody who is in the know will be happy to share with you if you just ask nicely for it. And so if you're for example, security. If we wanted to work as a penetration tester, we could find one, call them up, introduce ourselves, offer to buy them lunch or coffee or something else that won't take a lot of their time, and then pick their brain. How did you get started? What did you do? How was it? Do you like it? Would you do it again? And I am so grateful that I have the opportunity to work in the world of technology. It's just every day. I love it. If I do a ping, I'm talking about, I've done pings for 30 years now, but if I do a ping and it comes back, I still have that moment of, yeah, that is so cool. That little ICMP echo request can work, and an echo reply comes back, and I can use traceroute, and the TTL gets decremented, and they send me an ICMP time to live exceeded message. I still love it. So if you are a person and you're working in technology and you think, you know what, I don't even like this technology. I really, you may want to consider something else, because having an enjoyment and having a motivation to do it is a big part of learning and mastering any technology. So there's always going to be a people factor. I call it layer 8 of the OSI reference model, because people skills are important, because at the end of every network there's usually an end user or a manager or some business that wants a return on investment as a result from that business. So as far as areas that you should focus on, I would say I would focus on the one that is interesting to you. I would want to make sure that in the area that you plan on living or remote working from, that you're able to go ahead and there's a demand for those services. And all those that I listed, wireless, security, data center, virtualization, those are all valid ones. And there's also options besides, of course, just Cisco. I mean, there's, if you think about virtualization, VMware and Microsoft are huge, and those technologies are fascinating. They're really, really exciting. For security, there's Checkpoint and Palo Alto and HP and Juniper, in addition to Cisco. So I would say that you want to find out what the demand is, talking to an expert, looking online, seeing what jobs are being asked for by companies, and then work your way towards that goal. Step by step, every day, simply make progress. Now, another question, should a person go wide or deep into technology? And I'm going to tell you this, you need a little bit of both. For example, if you and I were applying for a job and we went and it was for voice, for example, and we say, yeah, we have some voice experience, it is implied that if we have some experience with voice, that we also understand a whole boatload about networking, routing and switching with quality of service at layer 2 and layer 3, and the marking of traffic and the differentiated services code points that are used to expedite certain types of traffic and the types of queuing. So there's going to be expected knowledge for any specialization that you're deep on. There's also going to be the expected knowledge wide as well. So for a new person, what I would recommend, if you just got your CCNA and Route switch, I would probably leverage that and continue on if you're going to go certification-wise, which also is not a have to do. You don't have to get certified. I mean, you can just learn the knowledge, apply those skills, and get paid for it, and just keep growing your knowledge without ever taking a test at the Pearson VUE location. That's perfectly fine too. So as far as CCNA, I would take all that knowledge. You just learned about EIGRP and OSPF, and you learned about basic switching and some little bit of spanning tree and some subnetting. I would take all that and I would push it right into a CCNP for route switch, because most of that knowledge you're still going to use from the CCNA and into the CCNP for route switch. And then after I have that route switch CCNP, if you're still interested in Cisco or other vendors, I would then take a look at doing some entry level for the other vendors just to feel the waters. I mean, I didn't know Checkpoint. I mean, I used Checkpoint for many years, but I didn't really appreciate how cool Checkpoint is until I dove in. And head-to-head, there's no commercial, by the way, for anybody specific, but head-to-head, certain vendors kick other vendors' butts based on certain technologies. and Checkpoint and Palo Alto and other companies have some amazing features that real companies really use. And so you might want to investigate outside of just Cisco as well, as far as what other technologies you might want to go ahead and master. Although my primary technology, my entire career in the world of IT, started with Novell and then Microsoft. But once I got into the networking side of it, Cisco has been the bread and butter because they are the biggest player. Do they make the best products? The answer is not every time, but a lot of the time their products are really, really good, and they can be supported. And for a company that wants to implement a network, it's not just buying the equipment and getting it set up and having it configured. It's also, what about 6 months later? What about if something else happened? Do I need support for this product? And that's an aspect that a lot of new people to networking sometimes overlook. It's like, wow, I can do this whole network with software-based routers and XYZ switches, and it'll cost half the price. And the reality is that may be true for half the price, but if there's a glitch or a problem or a hiccup down the road, that is also a real, not just imaginary or sales, but that's a real consideration regarding which vendor we should go with. Okay, another tip I want to share with you is that I've got a friend who shall go nameless, and John, just kidding, he will go nameless, it wasn't John. He was a student. He was a student that was fairly new into networking, and he was a great studier. He would just study and learn and master concepts. He was doing hands-on practice for everything in our videos. I was like, you are great. I had an opportunity to meet him a couple times personally. He got a 6-month contract with a company, which he got a chance to deploy his skills and use them. And he told me this. He goes, Keith, when I got this job, the 6-month contract, it wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be. Because when we learn about technologies, routing and switching and everything else, when you go into a production environment, all that stuff is set up. His job was taking templates for new switches and applying those templates. Like, okay, plunk, plunk. And then the reason that companies need experienced technicians, however, is because when there are problems, and there's always going to be problems, but when the problems come up, that's when our expertise and our knowledge about the product and how to work with it and how to quickly troubleshoot it becomes very, very valuable to an employer. So the more practice, so they're not going to hire me just because I know that RIP is a dead distance vector routing protocol that no one really likes. Just the knowledge itself is pretty much worthless. But if I go into an environment where they're having some routing loops and they have some legacy systems that are running RIP, and I know how to look at it and compare and contrast and find where the fault domain is and then correct it, those are the skills that that company wants to go ahead and have on their team. So the answer to this question on screen, regardless of specialization, which technology should a person become an expert in, it is the one that is in current use at your company. So if you're currently employed, and it doesn't even have to be your department, maybe we're working as telephone support for a company, but yet at that same company they have other technologies in use that are interesting to you that you want to become better at. We'd want to contact the person who currently works with that technology, invite them to lunch, or find out what they do and how they do it, be interested in that, learn from that person, and then ask them how to start learning. And because the technology is right there, it's just inches away at your company, I would strongly encourage you to master that, because the more you master technology that's at your company, first of all, your company is going to benefit because you'll have those skills. Secondly, you'll have a chance to actually apply those skills with hands-on practice. And third, it's a win-win situation. The company wins, you win, and an example of this was my first job back in the 80s, 1986, I think it was. Yeah, I went to school in 85 and 86. I got a job with EDS, Electronic Data Systems. And I'll tell you what, I didn't know nothing. I didn't know anything about, I mean, I knew what I learned in school about, the color coding on a resistor and, how to program an 8080 processor chip or whatever it was. But I really didn't know about, applying a real computer and moving circuit boards around and actually really working in a production environment. And so before, in the interview, the person I interviewed with was Anita Martinez. This was, again, many years ago. If she hears this webinar, hi, Anita. She's amazing. She had a whole bunch of people that she was interviewing. I was one of them. I'm the green guy. I know nothing about, I have no real-world experience yet. And one of the things I said was, if I was going to start preparing now to do a great job for you, if I got hired here, what should I start studying now in my free time, my spare time, before I come on board that could help me hit the ground running and be more effective the day I start for you as your employee? You know what? I got that job. And check this out. The reason I got it, I think, part of it, I had a nice smile. So I've got a nice smile and a voice for radio. So this webinar is perfect. But she gave me an HP LaserJet manual back in the 80s, 1986. They were fairly new. And so I took this manual, and when I came back for my follow-up interview, she asked me about, if I had a chance to look at it. And I said, yeah, I studied about fuser rollers and the corona wire and the voltages that should be present and blah, 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 blah. And I think because I took the initiative to learn that technology or start studying it when I wasn't required to, I think that impressed her. And so I got that job. It was a fantastic job, and that was just a springboard for additional things. And I wasn't looking to leave. I never am. And but as your skills grow, your skills will be in demand. And so either your current company can keep hold of you by compensating you for that, or other companies will. And the secret is, if you build it, they will come. If you put the study in and the practice in and become really, really good, your skills will be in demand. And my dad taught me, and this has stuck with me my whole life. Keith, he said, that's what he called me. He said, Keith, always do more than what you're paid for. And do it with a happy attitude, a good attitude. And you'll have a much more beneficial life as a result. That has always served me. I always try to do more than what I'm paid for. And when I work for a great company like CBT Nuggets, it's tough. It's like, oh my gosh, I love training. And I feel like every time I make a video, it's as if I'm talking about you personally, are right there next to me as we go through the videos together. And so just like this webinar, I realize that we all come from different backgrounds and we're in different parts of the world and we have different experiences, but I feel a connection to you right now, like I'm talking directly with you. And so anyway, I love my job. I love it, I love it, I love it. And every day, and no matter what technology we're working, whether it's voice or video or virtualization or data center or security, if we love our job and every day is like we're learning new things and applying those skills and continuing to grow, that's a recipe for a very, very happy life. Now, on the negative side, is there a chance that you or I could ever become obsolete? And the answer is yes. It is so easy to become obsolete. The way to do that is just never learn anything new. If something tells you about storage area networking and you don't know anything about it and you don't want to know, just say, no, I don't want to know. If somebody offers you to learn about virtualization, you could say, nope, I don't want to know. If somebody says, hey, software-defined networking is a new and upcoming technology, and it might be the thing of the future. If we just close our eyes and say, nope, 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 that's a very easy way to become obsolete. The other thing I'd like to share with you, and then we'll turn over to Brian here in just a moment to see if we can take a couple of questions, is one of the secrets to becoming very, very good at whatever it is you want to do is to, first of all, study it, practice it, work through that first 20 hours, which might be a little bit challenging. I think that's why our videos are very helpful, because we make it fun to help push through that barrier to start the real learning so you can go ahead and get all the nitty-gritty details done and comfortable with. But the reason it's beneficial to share information with others is because it benefits us. If you and I had a whole bunch of coworkers and you and I knew all about, let's say, vSphere, or we knew all about from VMware, or we knew all about, for example, Cisco routing and switching, if we share that information with other people who want to know, and we're willing to share what we know and give them examples, and at the same time we're continually learning ourselves and practicing to get better and better, it's a win-win situation. There's not going to be the day where they're going to say, okay, Keith, since you trained all these people and they're now as good or better than you are, we're now going to release you and you're going to be on the street. It's not like that, because on the back end, I'm constantly learning myself. I'm constantly studying and learning, and technology continues to evolve, and we do too. So I'm looking at the clock. It's 25 minutes after the hour in my current time zone. Brian, if we could, I know we've had a boatload of questions that have been pouring in, and I appreciate you monitoring that. Do we have maybe time for you to select maybe one or two of those that we could address before we close out here in a few minutes?
Yeah, Keith, absolutely. And everyone on this webinar, thank you so much for all your questions. I've seen a number of them coming in so far. So I'm going to go ahead and start with one that comes up, and actually comes up frequently here with our customers at CBT Nuggets headquarters, is I'm working on my CCNP following my CCNA. Should I continue with the old track or wait for the new one?
Great question. Repeating it just to make sure everybody hears it. If you're currently working on your CCNP, finish it now. Don't wait for the new exams, or don't wait till the current exams expire in January, because they do. Go ahead and finish it now. Get your route, get your switch. The technologies aren't changing that much anyway. So get it done, and then whatever's next, move on to that. So I would encourage you always, well, not always, but in this case, I would encourage you to do it now. Get it done, and then move forward with whatever the next technology or the next specialization is that you want to go ahead and master. So the old CCNP route switch with route, T-shoot, and switching is going to be very, very similar, or is, I should say, very, very similar to the new route, switch, and T-shoot. Routing is routing, switching is switching, and troubleshooting technologies really haven't changed that much either. So go for it now. Do not wait. Good question. Brian, what else do we have?
Hey, absolutely. Great response there, Keith. And Keith, one of the questions that just came in, actually, that comes up frequently as well is, any advice for finding an entry-level job for someone fresh out of college and entry-level certification but no production or enterprise experience? Yes.
Now, I know we all want to get work for money, right? And that we need to provide for our families and for our livelihood. If you are brand new and you have no real-world experience, first of all, I would recommend applying for there's probably 10 to 20,000 people a month, is my guesstimation, who are becoming certified, not just with Cisco, but other entry-level, like entry-level Juniper, entry-level HP, entry-level Cisco. So probably 20,000 people a month, right? That's a lot of people. So what I would strongly recommend is that find an organization that needs some assistance. For example, a school, a church, a club, a community organization of some type that needs some kind of assistance or support with their networking, maybe the design or the support, call me for questions, what have you. Because if you're currently not working yet, and for example, maybe you have a part-time job doing something else, you can still volunteer that time at those other organizations. And so as you start to work, and I'd also, don't do anything that you don't know how to do. For example, if the school calls and says, yeah, we're having a voice over IP call, issues, sometimes call manager loses connectivity with blah, 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 blah. If you don't know voice, don't, please don't cause harm. Be like a doctor, only, help them. So I would recommend, if you have a part-time job doing something else, volunteer some time for an organization and then get the word out. And then I would continue to interview. I would interview like every week with several companies. Maybe you're not qualified yet, but you can ask them, what should a person in my, I see that maybe, the requirements are this, and that. What would a person do to really prepare themselves to make sure they hit the ground running with that type of, skills that you're looking for? And then make a list. If they said, yeah, we're looking for somebody who has these skills, X, Y, Z, you think, okay, well, I need to work on those skills, because it seems like that's a common thread. So I would volunteer some time. That's what I would do. And I would consistently keep my feet moving in the direction of your goals. Because if you walk far enough, you're going to reach your goals. It may take a week or a month or a year or longer. But the key is to not stop. Do some volunteer work to get at least some hands-on practice. And then in your own environment, your home, lab it up. Use GNS3 or other virtualization tools, or if you have routers and switches that you've purchased from eBay or whoever, I would strongly recommend the hands-on. That way when you go into a job interview and you realize that you don't have a hands-on real-world application, you can tell the interviewee, I've configured, tunneling and trunking, and I've configured VPNs with Ike version 2, which is the new flavor of Ike version 1. It has blah, 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 blah. So if you have the hands-on practice, you can use that hopefully to overcome the fact that you don't have a lot of real-world experience, and with the attitude that I am a good learner. And I have learned all these skills. I can demonstrate them. I'd be happy to. And I'm a great team player. And you'd also want to be a good learner and be a good team player. And Brian, I know we're almost at the edge of our time limit. Do you have like one more question, or do we need to cut it off?
Hey, Keith. Actually, you know what? We do need to cut it off. I can't say anything but thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for everyone for all the questions and taking part in this webinar. This has been an absolute fantastic experience for so many out there. So thank you so very much. Guys, if your questions were not answered today, please go ahead and direct them to the Twitter handle of Keith Barker, CCIE, or at CBT Nuggets. We'd be happy to get those answered at that time. And I really do, again, appreciate all the time you put into this, Keith. Thank you so very much. Again, if you guys didn't have a chance to catch the whole webinar, it's available at blog.cbtnuggets.com. Keith, thank you so much again.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one.